Okay, what is up, people? So a little bit of a rambly one today. Obviously, this time of year is pre-season. We want to get really damn fast on the pedals. It is a nightmare to do, especially if anyone's tried training anaerobically before. You know, you're just probably going to be feeling sick by the end of the session, and it just feels like ass. So here's, a few sort of variations that you can do with your intervals. I'm just going to speak over them a little bit. It's one of my first actual YouTube videos, which is good from short form content. So it's going to be a little bit of a change of scenery over here, but hopefully you get loads of value from it. Right, actually, first and foremost, we'll chuck this on there to keep the audio going. Right, with your anaerobic intervals. So you can either do these on a watt bike if you're in the gym. You can do these outside. The watt bike you get a bit more data with. You can have a heart rate monitor on. Obviously we're not really going for like threshold work. We're just going for pure power output. So those are your two sort of variations that you want to do. Now with our sprint intervals, this is where a lot of people kind of get it wrong. There's either they'll pick sort of one variation, or like, certain distance, everyone's like, oh, 30 seconds, 90 seconds rest is the best, or 60 seconds, 180 seconds rest is the best. They all work. There's just different systems that we're going for. Now, what is the best for downhill? In terms of when you're doing a downhill race, races vary all the time. There's going to be some local laps where, maybe the race is like 40 seconds versus some bigger tracks. If you're racing Fort Bill, you can do like 5-6 minute laps, and those are, pretty gnarly. But when we're talking about anaerobic sprint intervals, we are thinking 2 minutes and under. That is what we're going for, all right? How many times a week do we want to do these? Once a week. If we nail once a week session, we are going to be absolutely incredible alongside your longer rides and everything like that. So all of the different variations you have to train for. You've got anaerobic, alactic and lactic capacity and power. This is 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 60, and 60 to 120 seconds. Now, if you do simple, there is something fancy coming in here, okay? This isn't just, a typical boring sort of, this is how to do your intervals. This is the only way, right? There's, people do this like a pretty boring approach. Obviously it works, block periodization, we know that works, it's really, really useful. With that, we're just looking at doing, say, like one block we do 60 second sprints, the next block we do 90, the next block we do 45, the next block we do 80, and it's just like one variation all the time, okay? This stuff is really good, but particularly for that top end sprint stuff, when we're out the gate, we're just putting maximum power in for, a few seconds, and then for a longer section of track, maybe we're doing harder efforts for 20 seconds. So we don't want to just be fit for one variation at a time. Okay, we want to be able to sustain all of these different intervals up, at a similar amount throughout the year. This is where we do something called integrated periodization. Okay, so just to loop round, my background with sort of training as well. I've done lots of cross-country stuff when I was younger. I went through a stint of being obsessed with Olympic weightlifting and competing in Olympic weightlifting. With that, if we think about these intervals as strength, okay, with strength, we've got typically 1 to 6 reps to train for. Over 6, we're going sort of like functional hypertrophy, lifting heavier with variations. In the sport of Olympic weightlifting, we need to be peaked for high singles year round. I promise this is going back to things. So with integrated periodization, instead of doing, 5x5, 6x3, 8x2, sort of going down that way in a block periodization, we do something called integrated periodization with this, where you can build up to a single all the time, year round, okay? And then we're gonna do a couple back off sets at 3 to 5 reps, and then maybe 1 or 2 back off sets at 8 to 12 reps. That way we are always hitting the skill of a high single. We are then training strength and absolute strength with the 3 to 5, where we're actually going to be progressing in terms of muscle mass and actual raw strength and capacity. And then we're gonna get the hypertrophy response from the 8 to 12s, where we can build a bit of muscle. Now, we are gonna do the same with your anaerobic intervals. Okay, we want to have that alactic power, so really fast, explosive, sprints, that 10 seconds. So we can do something like a 10-second sprint, and I love programming it this way. So you can give this session a go. 10-second sprints, round cap of 8. Okay, so you're not going to do more than 8. You're going to start off with this. You're going to sprint all out for 10 seconds. You're then going to rest 60 seconds. So you've got a 1 to 6 work to rest ratio, and you're just going to keep going until you really see that power drop off, okay? That's the one thing people get so wrong with their anaerobic sprint intervals, is they just keep going through fatigue. You do not want to do this with power. I know you get a lot of XC riders giving you mountain bike advice or whatever like this, but power is such a different quality to train. You really want to increase that top end capacity and that top end performance, and you only get to do that when you're actually exercising maximally. Okay, so the second you see your power output, or if you're out on the bike and you don't have a watt bike, you can set out some cones. And if you really start to see your performance roughly, or your distance go down by that sort of 10%, and you're really coming short of those cones and you're feeling the fatigue, just stop. Okay, that's going to be your first round. Your second round, you can then do 60 seconds, and then you're going to rest 108 seconds, 180 seconds. And once again, you can do 1 to 2 sets of either of these. So if you're closer to race season and you want to keep things shorter and sharper, you can do 2 rounds of the 10-second sprints, okay? And then just make sure you rest 5 to 10 minutes between the rounds so you get your energy back, and then rest 5 to 10 minutes, and then you're going to do the 60-second sprints. With these, don't go crazy out the gate for the full 60 seconds. All right, otherwise we are just going to be flagging and training fatigue. I want you to find that pace where you can sustain a hard effort. Obviously, you will have a bit of a taper off, but I want you to really sustain that hard effort pace throughout the whole thing. Okay, if you can nail that, you're going to be in a really, really good spot. Once again, we're going to do a round cap of 5. So if you fall out of 10% of your watts on the watt bike, or distance, if you're setting out cones, and if you've got like a track that or like a bit of road that you're trying to sprint between, just stop, rest, and go again for the set. But this way, what we're doing is we're getting that top end sprintability with the 10 seconds, and we are getting that kind of, that slightly longer, harder effort for the 60 seconds. So we're going to be fit and balancing both qualities, at the same time, as opposed to just doing, right, I'm just going to do 30-second sprint intervals or 60-second sprint intervals and only be fit for this. It's a really, really nice way to make sure you're obviously balancing everything and covering all your bases. And we can do this year round and just sort of play around with different variations under 2 minutes. But yeah, we're integrating the periodization as opposed to doing block periodization. It's something I really like to use with my riders. I hope that makes sense and I haven't just waffled on massively and you've got value out of that. But yeah, either way, if there's any questions, drop them either in the comments below. You can DM me on Instagram. Happy to answer any questions, however you like, whether it's like program design or whatever. So yeah, but thank you very much for your time. Also, let me know if there's any other videos you want more of this. I need to get more into YouTube and do more of this stuff. I do actually enjoy not having to curate everything for Instagram and just make little, quick reels and brain rot content to try and get everyone to see. So this way I get to spend more time with you guys, get to give more valuable content out and, explain points a bit better. So just you let me know and I will deliver the best I can.